Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
It doesn't make sense on either side of the border.
If the trucks have to go empty, that cost of bringing goods back will go up. So that means it's going to hit the pockets of Canadian consumers.
BC businesses and unions stare at Donald Trump's massive tariff pledge on Canadian goods, while the Premier is projecting confidence.
We are negotiating, I believe, from a position of strength.
Plus,
just picturing him, his remains in some abandoned sorting facility where no one is.
A grieving daughter says her father's remains are trapped by the Canada Post workers' strike, prolonging her family's pain. And
it might be completely obstructed, but again, just happy to get in the building.
Backstage tickets. Cheap seats for Taylor Swift in Vancouver go on sale, but you might not be able to see the show.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. BC businesses fear they may soon be at the mercy of a brewing trade war between Canada and the U.S. This after President-elect Donald Trump said he would impose a 25% tariff on Canadian and Mexican goods the day he takes office. Katie DeRosa has our top story.
Every day, one of the 25 trucks with Golden Express Trucking in Langley bring BC blueberries, vegetables, and machine parts across the border to California and Arizona. The trucks come back with American-grown fruits and vegetables and electronics. But for owner Amit Kumar, the threat from U.S. President-elect Donald Trump to slap a 25% tariff on goods from Canada and Mexico could slow the flow of products that keeps his company going.
Not just me, a lot of our trucking companies are worried because this is going to directly impact how much freight we can take down. It'll also impact the amount of freight that we can bring back because, say, we have to run trucks empty. It'll drive up the cost of all the produce, and other stuff that comes from the States.
Trump's shot across the bow has BC businesses bracing for the economic fallout. 54% of BC exports go to the United States.
And when you look at the exports that BC produces and sends to the United States, we're talking about wood products, we're talking about metals and minerals, we're talking about energy products, agriculture products, machinery.
The impact, Anderson says, could be job losses in those sectors. That was the reaction from BC Federation of Labour members when Premier David Eby mentioned the tariff.
This will be devastating to workers on both sides of the border.
Eby and his fellow premiers will meet with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to figure out next steps.
We buy more American stuff than France and China and Japan and the United Kingdom combined. So we are negotiating, I believe, from a position of strength.
Trump has said the tariffs will take effect January 20th, his inauguration day, unless Canada and Mexico curb the flow of drugs and migrants across their borders.
Our ports are not being protected. Less than 1% of our containers are checked on our ports.
BC Conservative leader John Rustad called for emergency funding to boost security at BC's borders and ports to stop the flow of illegal drugs. One union boss who represents forestry workers across BC and Canada thinks Trump's tough talk on tariffs could just be bluster.
It doesn't make sense on either side of the border. But again, this is Trump's style, and sometimes he likes to, light the house on fire as a leverage to other bargaining.
Canada's newly negotiated free trade agreement that replaced NAFTA is up for renewal 2 years from now. Trump's tariff threat is sure to amp up the urgency on those talks. Katie DeRosa, CBC News, Victoria.
An RCMP officer has been shot near the village of Midway in the West Kootenays. The injuries are described as non-life-threatening. It happened on a Forest Service road near the village. Other officers were quick to respond and did arrest a suspect. BC's police watchdog, the Independent Investigations Office, is now in charge of the case. Midway is about an hour's drive east of Osoyoos near the U.S.-Canada border. A Quebec woman says the Canada Post workers' strike has left her father's ashes in limbo. As Pinky Wong explains, the package containing his remains is stuck in Surrey.
Emily Wostrom has been impatiently waiting for her father's remains to arrive in Montreal. She learned about her father Dennis Wallstrom passing on October 23rd. Her dad died in Surrey due to a lung disease. Wostrom was in the Philippines at the time and scrambled to arrange for her father's cremation and the mailing of his remains to her home in Quebec. She was told the parcel was sent on November 12 and would get to her by the 20th. That changed when Canada Post workers started their job action and left her father's remains in limbo.
It's a terrible feeling to not know where he is. It's just picturing him, his remains in some abandoned sorting facility where no one is.
Even if she wanted to send her dad's ashes another way, there's little option when it comes to shipping human remains. They're prohibited by both FedEx and UPS. Her grief made worse now by uncertainty.
Extremely undignified that, there's a certain responsibility that is put upon Canada Post by them accepting human remains to then expect families to, especially in their time of grieving, to throw this on top of it.
Wostrom told us her family was planning to bury her father's remains in Manitoba, where most of his family is. But with the delays, it will now have to wait until spring as the ground is too frozen for a burial.
It's hard to put an end to the grieving process, to not know when he'll be able to be at rest. It's kind of surreal to think that this is happening right now. This should be the easiest part of everything.
In a statement, Canada Post says this is a difficult situation and they sympathize, but said once the strike ends, secured mail and parcels will be delivered on a first-in, first-out basis. CBC News reached out to the Canadian Union of Postal Workers for a comment, but did not hear back. Wostrom and her family are hoping Canada Post can review and prioritize packages that contain human remains so others like her can be reunited with their loved ones as soon as possible. Pinky Wong, CBC News, Vancouver.
Protests erupted at Vancouver City Hall earlier in the day over a controversial vote that would reverse a policy and once again allow for natural gas to heat space or water in new homes. More now from Chad Pawson.
This issue has generated a lot of interest here at City Hall. An idea whether Vancouver should reverse a policy to once again allow natural gas for heating space and water in new home builds. Currently, Vancouver's on a path toward electrification. It wants to meet its climate targets. A reversal of this by some say it will be bad for Vancouver being a leader on climate targets and combating climate change. This morning here at City Hall, there was a big demonstration by dozens of people chanting, singing, holding signs, saying they don't want this change to be pushed through. Here's some of what they had to say.
There's so many communities that were following us because our city was doing something very progressive, and this makes no sense.
Gas is a fossil fuel. It is a greenhouse gas. The methane is a greenhouse gas. It pollutes indoor air, it pollutes outdoor air.
They first started talking about zero emissions buildings in 2016, and the city council approved that decision then, and the public supported it then, and now we're back having the same conversation.
City Council spent the day debating this issue, going over staff reports about whether it's a reasonable change. City staff say that it wouldn't make house building any more affordable or any quicker by reversing to the natural gas to heat new homes for space and water, that electrification is a better path for the city, but there's still lots of questions. Also, City Council has to hear from 142 speakers who have signed up to come and present here. They range from industry to climate activists and also citizens. So we're not expecting a decision anytime soon. It should continue into tomorrow, these speakers, with Council ultimately having to make a decision whether to go against the current policy with the City of Vancouver or to go in a new way to give builders more choice around how homes and water is heated in the city. Chad Pawson, CBC News, Vancouver.
Nanaimo's only soup kitchen is on the hunt for a new location after property managers locked the charity out of its kitchen. More now from Claire Palmer.
In Nanaimo's Old City Quarter, a community staple run by dedicated local volunteers, suddenly forced to close.
When I'm not working, I give whatever time I can to the Stone Soup Project, and suddenly we just can't do what we need to do. It really does come down to people needing food and someplace to go, and now that's gone.
The Stone Soup Kitchen came about a few years ago as members of the community stepped up to help the city's homeless residents, first offering food in their backyard before moving to a kitchen and dining room.
Since the lockout of the kitchen, we've had to turn down 11 food hampers because we don't have the food to do them.
Hilt says he and his team were locked out of their facilities in October after property management company NAI took over the building. They were told they owed back rent, but were able to show CBC rent receipts that they say covers rent through November 1st.
What really upsets me about this whole gong show is how they had the audacity to shut down the only soup kitchen in Nanaimo right before Christmas when people need the place to go the most.
CBC contacted NAI for comment but did not hear back before deadline. Hiltz, meanwhile, says they've been lucky enough to get a lawyer pro bono, but are looking to find a new space as he says he refuses to work with NAI moving forward.
They won't even talk to us, haven't made any agreement to even allow us to get in to the kitchen, and roughly we figure there's probably close to, with the equipment, food that was in the freezers, and dry goods, is probably close to $50,000 in food that we could actually be using.
Local restaurant MGM has stepped up to help keep food service going.
And if it wasn't for the owner of MGM Restaurant, which is just across the road from us, stepping up and making soup and sandwiches nightly, we'd be unable to do what we need to do.
The charity says it's still planning on doing a Boxing Day food service as they look for a new location. Claire Palmer, CBC News, Nanaimo.
It is a Swifties' wildest dream. Days before the singer takes the stage for 3 sold-out shows at BC Place, more tickets appeared online for $15. But as Maurice Katz explains, the tickets do not promise a view of Swift or even the stage, though that hasn't stopped resellers from trying to fetch thousands.
Taylor Swift tickets for $15? It's the latest twist in the Eras Tour Vancouver saga. Swifties looking for tickets to the sold-out 3-show finale got one more chance Monday when thousands of tickets were released. But the catch? Those tickets are behind the stage. Tickets were sold in a queue for $15 with a $1.50 fee and listed as no stage view seats. But when regular tickets are going for $5,000, $10,000, even $15,000, even just going for the vibes seems like a great deal.
When we're talking in Eras Tour ticket prices, that's literally pocket change. That's crazy.
And like all Taylor Swift tickets, resellers are trying to capitalize. The cheapest ticket listed on StubHub at publishing is over $1,800, with some available for over $4,000. Those who got tickets had to stay locked in on social media just to get into the online queue.
It's like a crazy adrenaline rush. So basically there's Swifties who have set up like vigilante bots that track for when Ticketmaster releases tickets the same way that scalpers do. But the goal is to get true Swifties into the stadium rather than the resellers who are selling them on StubHub and other reseller markets at massive markups.
It's still not clear whether there'll be TV screens behind the stage showing the concert.
We'll see. We'll see when we get there. It might be completely obstructed, but again, just happy to get in the building. The people who are going for that aren't going for the Instagram photo. They're going to experience it. So I'm hoping it's going to be a great party.
Maurice Katz, CBC News, Vancouver.
Darius Madavi is here with our weather forecast as we turn a bit cooler.
That's right, especially in the north, we're cold. In the south, we're calm today. Fairly calm across BC, but you'll notice winter storm warning here coming to sections of the north coast, inland north coast, up to 20 to 40 centimeters of snow, expecting some of those places, and accumulating really starting tonight, really picking up. Here in the south, we've been fairly calm throughout the day today, really across the board, but a little bit of, not excitement coming our way, but a little bit of sunshine for sure here in Vancouver, clearing up a little bit at times over the next couple of days. But really the story is going to be up in the north where, again, very cold, like you said, Dan, and lots of snow coming our way.
Okay. Darius, thanks very much.
Thank you.
As the H5N1 strain of avian flu continues to spread, new questions about how a BC teenager became infected with the dangerous disease. That story's next. BC's top doctor says they still don't know how a teenager became sick with a strain of avian flu. And as Michelle Gassoub reports, another case has now been identified in California.
A BC teenager remains in critical condition, infected with the first human case of H5N1 avian flu in Canada.
This young person has received the best possible care from the clinical team at BC Children's and is stable, though still very sick.
The province still doesn't know how or where the teen became infected. Their investigation tested 16 close family members and friends, over 25 animals, and 10 environmental samples. All tests have come up negative.
One of the reasons we did this so detailed investigation was to ensure that there was no evidence, and I can say that again, there is no evidence of transmission from this young person and no evidence of any other cases right now in British Columbia.
Officials say they may never know how they got sick. The update comes as a child in California tested positive for the H5N1 strain. It's also been detected in raw milk in that state, a product not sold anywhere in Canada. The milk supply here is being monitored.
Active in all provinces. There are samples being taken at the processor level from the trucks that have come right from the farm, and they're tested for highly pathogenic avian influenza in that raw milk before it goes into the pasteurizer.
Human infection remains extremely rare and usually occurs after close contact with infected animals. People are being urged to avoid sick birds and report them.
But we also want to make sure we keep pets away from birds, but also from ponds and areas that they might want to go into right now, because we know that ponds that have ducks and geese in them right now can have virus in the water.
The province says it hopes the sick teen will make a full recovery. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
BC's Real Estate Association says home sales around the province appear to be picking up. Just under 7,200 homes were sold in the province last month, a 33% increase from last October. The average home price was up 1% a year to date, sitting at just over $970,000. Though prices remain highest in Greater Vancouver, where the average price is currently north of $1.2 million. BC Ferries is changing how it receives community feedback. It says it will dissolve its advisory committees, which have represented coastal communities for 3 decades. Instead, a new digital engagement model is coming in, set for next May.
I can't see any positive changes that are going to happen that are going to help. I just see it as they're basically shooting the messenger, and people are really angry. This was their way to have a voice, and they're seeing that being taken away and told, oh, well, it'll be virtual.
Mumford says volunteers feel as if they've been fired, arguing the committees were not told before that change was announced.
We're not trying to implement something that isn't going to work for communities. We don't want to presume what the outcome is going to be. It's why we're going to take a number of months here to talk to local governments, to talk to nations, to talk to residents and say, what do you expect and what would be the best model for you?
BC Ferry says the old model no longer fully meets the needs of its passengers. In January, it plans to visit affected communities and hold pop-ups to help inform future decisions. Friends and family of a Thompson Rivers University volleyball player killed in a car crash in Kamloops last year are angry a suspect has not been charged under the criminal code. Police say Colville Shakil Abinet is charged under the Motor Vehicle Act with driving without due care and attention and driving without reasonable consideration. That crash killed 22-year-old Owen McInnes, seriously injured 2 of his teammates, and caused a vehicle pileup that hurt 7 more people. McInnes' coach says the players' families are outraged.
I think it's hard to have faith in a system that allows this and allows this to be something that obviously doesn't seem to warrant what happened.
RCMP says Abinet remained at the scene and was not impaired by drugs or alcohol. He's set to appear in court December 23rd. A look at the day that was on Cypress Mountain. Plenty of sunshine, lots of snowmaking, nice for skiers and snowboarders early in the season. Darius has your BC-wide weather forecast coming up after this. Some might think it's a bit early, but the Christmas lights are going up and holiday playlists are starting to ring from shopping malls. This time of year can be overwhelming, to say the least, for those with a long list of friends and family they want to shop for. Why, though? Here to offer some insight is UBC sociology professor Amy Hanser. Professor, thanks for coming in. We appreciate it. Your research looks into what you call sustainable consumerism. How can people factor that in when they want to give gifts?
So it's good to keep in mind that one of the reasons we give gifts is because it helps shore up our relationships with other people. So that's why it's so important. That's why we care about it. That's why you feel like you can't just skip it. And there's actually research that shows that people who are trying to downshift or consume less, especially at the holidays, one of the hardest things is gift giving, receiving and giving. So yeah, if you're concerned about the environment or financial constraints or anything like that, gift giving can be really hard because it's very hard not to do it.
And it's a bit of a layer cake because that's one stress point. Within that, you may be concerned about how much you're spending on people, if they're close to you, if not. How should we be thinking about how much we spend when it comes to gift giving?
Well, I think it's good to recognize that we tend to do a matching process, the relationship and the kind of gift. And if you mismatch it can feel really uncomfortable. And so that's one of the reasons why those important social relationships, it's hard not to give a gift. It may feel hard to give a small gift because you want to signal that it's an important relationship. All of these things are sort of unspoken, but they're part of our gift giving culture. And so if you want to do something different, you probably have to say something or explain it or communicate to others what you're hoping for.
Have you heard any success stories when people do that? For example, if they decide we're not giving gifts, we're going to do something else, we're going to save for a trip. What works?
I think it would depend on the relationship. It depends, because it's not just about you, it's about the other party. I feel like I have a very hard time telling people who love giving gifts not to give gifts. And if you don't want gifts and you get them, it's always best to just be gracious and accept them.
Good advice. And has the cycle of, I guess we can call it fast-moving trends, changed the way we give gifts, do you think?
Well, I mean, it's hard for any of us to be outside of the kind of pressures to consume, the constant changing products that are offered to us. So I think that absolutely those are offered up to us as easy solutions to gift-giving conundrums where you're trying to figure out what to give someone. And I guess if you want to reduce how much you're spending or how much you're consuming, it's good to think of maybe non-material ways that you can show your appreciation for others.
The experience idea?
That's right. Like I was just talking with a friend who had been given a cooking class as a gift. I thought that was great. I'm also thinking of encouraging my kids to offer their time to people instead of getting them a thing, and think about how they would want to spend time with special people in their family.
And when it comes to money, because sometimes that's the default, any advice on that?
So I've actually been thinking about this, and often instead of giving money, we'll give things like gift cards, and sociologists call that special money, right? It's like separated from like regular money. But I'm like, I think we should be open to giving cash. I know when I was a kid, I would have preferred cash. And I think if it's given in the right way, and there's lots of cultures that have traditions of giving cash, most people, then they can spend the money how they want. So if there's a gracious way to do it, maybe a beautiful envelope or a really personal message, and then you can forgo all the plastic of the gift card or the constraints, and of course you lose the gift card or you don't use it all up.
There you go. UBC Professor Amy Hanser, we appreciate your time and your expertise. Thanks for joining us.
Of course.
His inauguration is still almost 2 months away, but Donald Trump is raising international tensions with his policy announcements. The incoming U.S. president is threatening stiff tariffs on imports from Canada and Mexico. That could create serious problems for the Canadian economy, among others. The CBC's Kate McKenna has the political reaction.
Overnight, everything changed.
I had a good call with Donald Trump last night again. We obviously talked about laying out the facts, talking about how the intense and effective connections between our two countries flow back and forth.
President-elect Donald Trump has thrown his first curveball at Canada since his win earlier this month. Yesterday, he posted online saying, "On January 20th, as one of my many first executive orders, I will sign all necessary documents to charge Mexico and Canada a 25% tariff on all products coming into the United States and its ridiculous open borders," saying tariffs would stay in place until both countries crack down on immigrants and toxic drugs illegally crossing the border. More than 3/4 of Canada's exports are sent to the U.S. Trump's proposal could be catastrophic for jobs.
We cannot start a war, and we have to do everything we can to not have these tariffs.
It's like a family member stabbing you right in the heart.
This will be devastating to workers on both sides of the border.
Canada's public safety and finance ministers say they're working on a plan which will include boosting border security.
We have, in recent days, worked with the RCMP and Border Services about continuing to support them in terms of acquiring new technologies, drones, helicopters, additional human resources.
And could include retaliatory tariffs.
Our government will always defend the national interest.
I only care about Canada.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says Trump's threat is unjustified, but called on Trudeau to tighten border security and stop the illegal importation of fentanyl.
We trade more with the U.S. than we do with the rest of the world combined. I will do what is necessary to preserve and protect that relationship above all others.
Canadian officials also say that if Trump does move forward with these tariffs, he risks hurting Americans in addition to Canadians. The Prime Minister and the Premiers are set to meet tomorrow to discuss what comes next. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
Now, the threat of the tariffs from the incoming Republican administration is already having an impact in Canada. The value of the loonie fell in early trading today, but has since rebounded. The CBC's Peter Armstrong has more on the economic outlook and the likelihood of Trump following through with his threat.
The sheer volume of trade between Canada and the U.S. is staggering. The numbers are almost too big to comprehend. Add up all the oil, all the cars, lumber, steel, and grain. Canadian exports to the U.S. total more than $600 billion a year. But if you zoom in, you'll find individual businesses now bracing. Farmers like Manitoba's Landon Friesen.
We're hauling wheat down into North Dakota here. We have about 150 loads to make. We're about 20 loads into our winter hauling.
He's worried about the proposed tariff, but grain farmers are a pretty unflappable bunch.
I'm feeling optimistic. I think it'll be okay as long as we don't run around with our heads cut off about this and freak out.
Grain exports are a fraction of Canada's oil exports. Canadian oil powers the U.S. economy. The industry is so critical that many just assumed energy products would be exempt. But Trump has reportedly said oil and gas will face the full weight of the tariffs. In such a deeply intertwined economy, that will drive up costs for American consumers.
Of all the allies around the world, nobody is more economically and commercially aligned than Canada and the U.S. That's a strength here.
Canada imposed retaliatory tariffs on the U.S. the last time Trump was president. But a big part of the Canadian response then was showing how U.S. tariffs on Canadian products impacts Americans. After all, a tariff is like a tax. It's paid by American businesses and consumers who import products.
It would be a really substantial hit to both American consumers and American manufacturers.
This trade expert says Americans support the idea of tariffs, but don't necessarily realize the cost.
It may be the need to touch the hot stove, and people, when they get their grocery receipts, and see it's a little bit more expensive all of a sudden, well, maybe they'll learn the lesson there.
And he says he crunched the numbers and found this kind of sweeping tariff would be like imposing a $210 billion tax hike on Americans themselves. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
Notorious murderer and serial rapist Paul Bernardo has been denied parole for a third time. The two-member panel did not deliberate for long today before handing down their decision. The CBC's Sarah Levitt has more from outside Bernardo's prison in Quebec.
The hearing took most of the day, but in the end, it only took 30 minutes of deliberation for two members of the Parole Board of Canada. to deny Paul Bernardo parole. They denied him day parole, full parole, and temporary absences, saying the risk remained too high. The two members did say that Bernardo had made progress since his transfer to La Macasa institution in Quebec a year and a half ago, but that it was not enough to allow him to live in society. Earlier in the day, Bernardo had to listen to victim impact statements. The mothers of Kristen French and Leslie Mahaffey testified. Those were the two girls who were kidnapped, sexually assaulted, and murdered by Paul Bernardo. Speaking via a video conference, Donna French said that her worst nightmare would be that another family would have to endure what hers has should Bernardo go free. Part of what she said was, quote, "It was not easy to learn to live and have meaning in our lives after such a senseless and brutal loss. They say that time heals, but I don't for a minute believe that, for I have not healed." All that while, Paul Bernardo was listening in from another room. He has been denied parole in all aspects of his demand. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, La Macasa, Quebec.
If you've noticed some eye-watering prices at your local deli counter later, you're not alone. The price of beef has hit historic highs, rising at a much faster rate than pork or chicken. The CBC's Cal Bax looks at what's driving those costs up.
Jim Jackson packs up ground beef, ready for the display case. This year, the price tags keep rising, so much it's hard for him to believe.
I've been working here quite a while, and it's probably the all-time high I've ever seen them.
Beef prices have soared to historic highs across the country. The latest numbers show a kilogram of ground beef was selling for about $13 on average in September, compared to about $11.50 1 year earlier and about $9 5 years ago. Beef strip loin cuts climbed past $32 after selling for about $20 last December. So far, the sticker shock at grocery stores isn't scaring away customers.
Globally, we've got a growing population, a growing middle class, and they want more protein. And it's not just beef, it's pork and poultry as well, and wanting to have more of that product.
The record prices are not only on store shelves, but on farms too. Cattle prices are between 45% and 65% higher this year compared to the average since 2019.
We definitely have a strong price situation that producers are facing right now.
The supply of beef in the country is dwindling as many ranchers scale back their operations. They have faced rising expenses of their own in recent years, including for feed because of drought conditions.
And when you have fewer cows a couple years later, you're going to have higher beef prices because there aren't going to be the animals to provide the beef.
For Jackson, he's cut his margins to try and keep prices in check.
Our profit at the end of the day is less. I don't want to gouge customers. We're just doing our best.
He hopes prices hold steady, especially during the busy holiday season. Kyle Bax, CBC News, Calgary.
Israel and Lebanon have agreed on a ceasefire, ending the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. While the outgoing Biden administration hopes it's a model for potential ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. That story's next. A hiker has been found in a remote BC park near Fort St. John after going missing more than 5 weeks ago. He was first reported vanished after he didn't come home mid-October from a 10-day camping trip in Redfern Keel Provincial Park. He started his hike on October 7th, meaning he was in the outdoors for more than 50 days. There had been worries about his survival with winter weather setting in. You can read more on this story on our website later tonight, cbc.ca/BC. Darius Madavi here with our BC-wide weather forecast. And it's already winter, at least the chill across a lot of our province.
Yes, definitely feeling that chill in the air if you're in the northern parts of the province. Down here in the south, we're a couple degrees below seasonal in most places, including here in Vancouver. So those places like, Kamloops, Whistler, Golden, all, a degree or two below normal, not Golden, Cranbrook. But in the north, quite a bit below seasonal, really across the northern parts of the province today. 5 to 10 degrees below seasonal. As we get into tomorrow, dropping back down to parts of the northeast, being 10 to 15 degrees below normal for this time of year, and lots more chill on the way once we get through the rest of this week. Just a lot of that Arctic air spilling down into that part of the province. Down here, conditions remain fairly calm across the southern half of BC. But again, not much activity happening. We had some outflow winds dry out the air mass over Vancouver today. So over the next couple of days, maybe the odd drizzle, lots of low cloud, but nothing too exciting. And that's the case for most of the south coast. A lot of that activity is going to happen up in the northwest, where we've got a flow bringing in quite a lot of snowfall in the days ahead. A lot of that also breaking into parts of the Peace and the central interior, which we can see here. We're going to watch that precipitation start to build up. Keep in mind, again, because the temperatures are so low, most of that is falling as snow. But this map is showing us both the snow and the rain. You'll notice that some rain is expected to come to some parts of the south coast. But again, we're talking a couple millimeters over the next 48 hours. Really nothing significant at all. If we take a look at our snow forecast, so I'm going to remove that rain. You'll notice just confined to the northern half of the province. The southwest ranges may be getting a little bit of snow, but really nothing significant at all. And you can see that once we roll past 24 hours, which is where we're at here, roughly 24 hours, you can see there quite a lot of snow coming to those northwest ranges. In some places, as much as 100 centimeters of snow, a full meter of snow coming down over that 48-hour period. So don't be careful if you're up in the mountains in the northwest, I guess, but that's a decent amount of snowpack coming down, which is good news for that part of the province. Although they didn't have the worst drought situation this past year, really anywhere we can build up that snowpack is good news for the province. Across, again, the province, we're looking at snow in the north tomorrow. That's where our activity is. Down here in the south, the odd flurry, the odd shower, but really just lots of sunshine coming and some low cloud, especially here in Vancouver, where tomorrow you'll expect to see lots of low cloud in the morning, maybe a bit of clearing in the afternoon, evening time, a couple days of low cloud and drizzle, and then hopefully a little bit of sunshine for the weekend. Dan?
We like it. Thanks very much, Darius.
Thank you.
There is a major development in the Middle East conflict. U.S. President Joe Biden says Israel and Hezbollah have agreed to a ceasefire in Lebanon, with fighting expected to stop this hour. Chris Reyes now with steps towards truce.
Today, I have some good news to report from the Middle East. I just spoke with the Prime Minister of Israel and Lebanon. I'm pleased to announce that their governments have accepted the United States proposal to end the devastating conflict between Israel and Hezbollah.
The deal comes after nearly 2 months of intensifying conflict across Israel and Lebanon's shared border, following Hezbollah's attacks on Israel after October 7th. The fighting has displaced more than 1 million people in Lebanon and tens of thousands in northern Israel. President Joe Biden said that the deal will be effective early Wednesday and designed to be a permanent end to hostilities.
And over the next 60 days, Israel will gradually withdraw its remaining forces. And civilians on both sides will soon be able to safely return to their communities and begin to rebuild their homes, their schools, their farms, their businesses, and their very lives.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu released a pre-recorded address before President Biden's announcement. He listed these reasons why he believed now was the time for a ceasefire, to better focus on the Iranian threat, to replenish military resources, and to separate Hamas and Hezbollah to make it easier to retrieve hostages. He then attached this condition to any ceasefire.
And if Hezbollah will rearm itself, we will attack.
And if he'll fire missiles, if he puts trucks with missiles, we will attack.
President Biden said his administration is now working with Turkey, Egypt, and Qatar to reach a deal to release the remaining Israeli hostages in Gaza, end the fighting, and surge aid into the enclave. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
The song Do They Know It's Christmas is a 1984 classic we hear this time of year. It was created by a group of musicians in the UK to fundraise for famine victims in Africa. But over the years, it's faced a lot of backlash. This year, for its 40th anniversary, it's been remixed. And as Margaret Evans reports, that has reignited the debate.
The annual Christmas season underway in London. With it, a would-be challenger to top the Christmas music charts. We know it's Christmas is musician Fuse ODG's reply to another re-release of the Band-Aid charity song for Africa, Do They Know It's Christmas?
We honestly thought that, 2024 he wouldn't, try and bring out a song that just perpetuates crazy stereotypes about the continent.
We're going to try the chorus.
He is Sir Bob Geldof, who brought together pop stars of the day to sing a song released 40 years ago now.
The relief effort for the famine victims in Ethiopia was boosted today by a new #1 in the charts.
It led to Live Aid and is credited with the rise of celebrity fundraising. But critics, including Ghanaian British Fuse, say it distorts reality.
Portraying the whole of the continent as a place of famine, poverty, war.
Geldof has been defending it.
The debate only happens because of this small pop song. Without it, that debate doesn't come anywhere.
Over the past year, Band-Aid says it's awarded grants worth more than $5 million for projects in Ethiopia, Sudan, Chad, and Somaliland. An echo, they say, of the work it's been doing for 40 years now. But global development expert Danny Sriskandarajah says it's time to retire the song.
We need to raise awareness of what's happening in different parts of the world, but we have a responsibility to do so in a way that reflects our common humanity and not perpetuate a sort of saviourist model of the world.
That also means, he says,
Christmas is coming and quick, but wouldn't you know, some toys are in demand more than others. A look at the trend in the gadgets coming up.
This is Vancouver is a new CBC podcast where we explore the issues, the stories, and the people that make this place home. Listen to This is Vancouver wherever you get your podcasts.
Let's spread some joy. Kick off the holiday season with a day of special programming in support of local food banks across BC. Make the season kind. December 6th. With Christmas Day now less than a month away, stores have been busy stocking their shelves with toys and gadgets for all ages. The CBC's Santa Choi now with which items are proving very popular this year.
The holiday season is here, and for the kids in your life, there's no doubt that Santa is making his list and checking it twice. So what are the most popular toys this year? We're about to get some advice to hear what's on trend.
The biggest thing for me right now, I will tell you, the biggest, is jelly cats. I cannot keep them in stock. We keep getting told by people we have the biggest selection in the city. So one of our hot items right now, as I told you before, is that RC, like remote controls, are huge, but this new gecko is so cool. So it's got a remote control and it will go on a wall, goes back and forth, it turns. We do a lot of growing kits. So we have a lot of variety here. We have like a dinosaur growing kit and we have unicorns, princesses, really popular. So what they do is they put the seeds in the bottom and then they have these little figurines that they put inside so they can watch their little plants grow. But one of our best sellers is definitely the Deer Diary. This one here is about a 6+, and it comes with a key and it comes with a lock, which children love. But what's nice about it is you get all the different stickers, all the different gems, and they can decorate the front of their diary, and then they have their own little diary that they can lock and keep all their hidden secrets inside of.
Another popular toy and one that's been on lists for decades, Lego. People come to Play Value from all over the region because of its massive selection of Lego inside this building.
People that will drive from Kingston. I've had customers come from Montreal to check out our selections.
Store owner and manager Janet Jones has been selling toys for 38 years.
Disney Princess, and then on this side you'll see Ninjago. We carry a lot of Playmobil, is very popular because it's great for imaginative play. We do Brio, which is the wooden train sets. We do Bruder, which is a German company, and they do all kinds of tractors and trucks and construction vehicles that are a 1/16 scale. A lot of STEM science activities. Puzzles are huge. Again, from kids right up to adults, we sell right up to a 40,000-piece puzzle.
So whether the kids on your list have been naughty or nice or somewhere in between, there are lots of ideas and still a little bit of time to get your shopping done. Santa Choi, CBC News, Ottawa.
The recent birth of a rare poodoo deer has created quite a stir at a biopark in Argentina. Yeah, just a little fella. The tiny fawn named Lenga weighs just 1.2 kilograms. The poodoo is one of the smallest species of deer on the planet. As adults, they don't grow more than a half meter in height. Scientists hope better research on the elusive creatures will help save them from extinction in the wild. Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch this newscast on CBC Gem, our free app, as well as on YouTube and, of course, our website, cbc.ca/BC. We will have your next local news at 11 o'clock, right after the National. See you then.